Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast Modern Couples What Your Therapist Never Told You. My name is Rick Miller,
I'm Lillian Borges.
and we're both therapists who love working with couples. Today's episode is Help. My partner is a narcissist.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, so much.
We hear that a lot.
I think a little bit too much.
Yes, we hear that a lot, right? And that word is being thrown so much and that we don't even know what it is anymore.
Yes. Do you think it's lost its meaning? Because it seems like everyone's ex is a narcissist. All of my friends, all of my clients, like 99.9% of the population, narcissistic.
You know, when you're a child and you repeat a word again and again and again, it loses its meaning.
Yes, totally.
I think that narcissist is one of those things.
I can't tell you how many times I heard the term this past week in my personal life and my professional life.
Oh, really? What do you mean? Can you give us one example?
Well, actually, one of my friends divorced her husband, or he left her, I should say, and she was giving me the details, and she's a mental health professional, and she used the diagnosis probably accurately, but she said her husband was a narcissist. She had been doing everything in the relationship except money management. She did the emotional work, the physical work, the housework, raising the kids, and lo and behold, he fell in love with another woman, and he wasn't transparent about the money. And it seems as though he may have taken more than his fair share of money. So she said that she studied narcissism really to educate herself, and she's become a much better clinician as a result. So maybe that's an over the top example because most people who use the term are not clinicians.
And a lot of the description that you gave about the end of her marriage or how it went, it could go with someone that didn't have the narcissistic trait.
Tell me why you say that.
Well, being in a relationship where, the woman does most of the emotional work,
Yeah, that's every relationship.
right? Uh-huh. And then, a feeling taken for granted and the other person taking the ownership or the control over the money. And then one partner falls in love with someone else and not being transparent about finances and the affair or the relationship. So that happens a lot and not necessarily with someone who has narcissistic traits or diagnosis. So that being said, your friend is a healthcare professional, and we can learn about narcissism and the traits and deal with that in a way that is healthier, whether it is personally or in our offices.
Can I just say one thing that's kind of interesting, and I'm sure you've been through it in our clinical training or in reading the DSM, which I know you have on your desk, that we can diagnose ourselves as almost anything that we're reading about early on in our careers. It's really normal to not be able to discern what symptoms you're reading about that aren't you. And what I mean by that is early on, when I used to read about narcissism, about borderline, about you name it, dependent personality, I was all of those things because I could identify with those symptoms. So I think it's very common that people read about narcissism and think, aha, he is, she is, there we go. But should we talk about what it is or isn't?
Well, yes, but I would like to make a comment
Okay,
on that.
go for it.
So, which is, yes, we all have those traits,
Mm,
right?
yep.
And when it does get imbalanced, or we get too much, or we had the negative side of it, this is when it becomes or a clinical diagnosis, right? We all have narcissism, which is what is narcissism? You loving yourself. You have a healthy narcissism.
Okay, that's healthy narcissism.
It is only when it becomes the main and solely focus of a personality that you have to be loved by everybody all the time and you only care about yourself and not other people. This is when it becomes a problem in someone's life.
And can I add to that, that it's also done in a way that can be incredibly demeaning and cruel. A true narcissist is not someone who commands conversation or might be referring to themselves all the time. Frequently, there are motives to the behavior that's over the top, about so grandiose, so self important, demeaning of other people because it gets in the way of their view of themselves, that kind of thing. Should we read about it? Okay.
Yeah, so I brought the DSM, right? Ah, ha, ha, ha. You know, the
The
book that
Bible.
tells us, our Bible that tells us what it is and what is not. So, what is a narcissistic? And I'm talking about a personality disorder.
Well, we should define a personality disorder versus traits. So, a personality disorder is a clinical definition. It is in my own lay terms, it's an exaggerated.
So it is a pervasive pattern of a personality that the person does not always have awareness of it. So they do not have an insight. It is, those people that think that the problem is with everybody else except them.
Yes.
And they are either melodramatic or they are really weird. So they have a personality that is, they're not aware that the problems that they cause, but they have a lot of issues. And it is pervasive.
And can I add to that? That's really important because if you wonder if you're a narcissist, you're probably not, because you wouldn't be
Yes.
able to see it in yourself.
Exactly. Therefore, the gaslighting, because they're sure that they don't have anything. There's not a problem with them.
Yes.
So, of course, if we're having a problem and I am not the problem,
I'm not the one with the problem.
you are the problem. And I'm going to tell you why you're the problem. So, and that's a defense mechanism.
Mhm. Yes.
But when we talk about personality disorder, is a pervasive pattern of personality that causes problems either for the person or in relationships, and people are not aware of it. And we have a few personality disorders, but we are talking today about the narcissistic personality disorder. And you could have one or two traits that are problematic but not have the whole criteria. And this is what we are talking about. Eggs doesn't make a cake, but it is one element of a cake. So, a narcissistic personality has a grandiose sense of self and self-importance. They exaggerate their talents, their, achievements and things like that. It is often preoccupied with unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, ideal love, don't tolerate anything that is less than that, and believes that they are special. They are above law sometimes. The rules apply to everybody else but them. And as I speak, yeah, I'm thinking about this and that person, oh, that person is it's like that.
Me too. As you're speaking, I'm thinking about Mick Jagger in the song Carly Simon, which I think might have made her famous, "You're So Vain."
Yes.
And the lyrics of those song are about him commanding the attention and people kind of falling by his wayside to
Mhm.
fit into his world.
Yes, yes.
But he I oh, you have more? Okay. Go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
Requires excessive admiration, has a sense of entitlement, unreasonable expectations of how things should be in relationships. So it is exploitive. They exploit other people. They think that people are there to just serve to them and give to them admiration or what he needs, what he thinks that he needs from everybody. They lack empathy.
Mhm.
That's a big one, is the one that gives us the irk, right?
Yeah, that's a big one. No empathy.
When you don't have empathy for other people, we are not kind. When you don't have compassion, this is just like, this is a turn off for us. Is often envious of others, but probably don't say it, but shows a lot of arrogance and attitude. So these are the criteria, the diagnostic criteria for narcissists.
Okay, so this is helpful hearing you read this, because I'm realizing that, yes, the term is overused, but the people that are using the term are not necessarily diagnosing their spouse as having a personality disorder. Maybe they're just saying their spouse has narcissistic traits. But here's the big question.
Uh-huh.
Why do all the people that separate from their spouses who are narcissistic, how did they not see these traits in the first place? Do they fall for the narcissism? And how do they sustain a relationship with someone who's narcissistic as long as they actually did? So that's the big question that I'm wondering about. I don't know if you have any answers or not.
Oh, I have 10,000 answers to
Okay, well,
that.
give me 9,000 and
And all the combinations that is possible. So first of all, they do have a lot of the narcissists, and they fulfill the criteria. They do have difficulties, and the narcissistic behaviors are ways to cover that difficulties that they have, the insecurities, the ways that they don't feel love.
yes.
And of course, they would find people who are insecure themselves.
Yep.
And so the narcissist gives this idea that they are perfect, and when they are in love, the target or the object of love of a narcissist is the most beautiful and perfect thing that they ever seen. So we fall in love with that.
And isn't falling in love a narcissistic act anyways?
No, and I don't think so.
Oh, oh,
But they do have that enchantment, right? But
yes.
that thing that is exaggerated, that, "Oh, this is the most wonderful thing." And of course, it is impossible to maintain that. And when the person fall of graces, fall out of the in love,
Mhm.
this is when the problems start. When the negotiations in the relationship, the conflict started arising, there is a difficulty in negotiating the differences.
And that happens in any relationship, whether the person's a narcissist or not. A relationship reaches a point of real. The other person is a real person, no longer just the idealized figure that we imagine they are early on in falling in love. And successful relationships have to negotiate with tolerating the shattering of who we've built this person up to be, and
Mhm.
I'm digressing a little bit, but you touched on something that was important, and I wanted to talk about it, which is narcissism is incredibly trendy these days, like ADHD. People are talking about it all the time. Everyone has it, and it's demonized, and narcissistic people are made to sound horrible. But what's lacking in the discussion of narcissists is why does someone become a narcissist? And the reason why someone becomes a narcissist is because as they were growing up, they did not receive enough. And the reaction to not being cared for, not being emotionally held in a way that's important, not having consistent caregivers available to you when you're young is to need more, crave more, and become that way in the world. And I'm just saying this because we can use the label, but sometimes it's also helpful to understand why someone becomes the way that they are.
It makes us feel a little more compassionate, right?
Yes.
For traits that are less than beautiful or in people. It does makes us or makes me feel a little bit more compassionate when I ask questions about a narcissist and about their families and how badly they were treated and put down and humiliated sometimes by their parents, one or both. So they did have to put that shell of "I am the best, I am penetrable. You don't hurt me as I was hurted before."
Yes.
But there is another way to make a narcissist, which is not giving enough boundaries, just giving everything that the person and treating that person or that child as that is the best, right? As the golden child, as the best thing that ever happened to the world.
But isn't that most of our younger generation these days?
No, that is more into as a way of regulating the parent.
I see.
You are the golden child. You are amazing. So you are to help regulate me, my self esteem, because you're so wonderful. So then I am a wonderful because I'm your mom or I'm your parent. So we are all wonderful here. Unless you do something that pisses me off, and then you're not wonderful anymore. And then you're going to get my wrath. So those are the ways that I see. There is something that I think it's important to bring is we usually find or choose partners who have the same level of functioning or maturity that fits our attachment development. So it is the bite that fits the wound.
Well, this is really important because
Yes.
it's a two-way street, and all these people that are saying they married a narcissist perhaps did, but it's also dismissing whatever it is that they needed from that person at that time.
Exactly. Right.
Mm.
So it might have been that they learned from that relationship and now they are seeing things inside of themselves and grew from it. But a lot of times we just see partners bashing their exes over and over again without having that reflexive behavior that says, okay, that's how I contributed. That's why I accepted all that. And I'm not saying that it is not hard to get out of a relationship like that. Once you are with a truly narcissist and someone that beats you up emotionally and puts you down and controls, and it's hard to have a self-esteem and strength to divorce, someone like that.
Well, and not everyone married to a narcissist divorces them or separates. There's a lot of couples
Yes.
that stay together,
Yes.
and frequently the people that are diagnosing their spouses as narcissists, and they probably are narcissists, who stay have to create ultra strong boundaries for themselves so they don't get sucked into the same dynamic and end up hating themselves. And they have to keep going and they have to learn to negotiate with their spouse in ways that won't inflame them. It's really easy if you're with a partner who's truly a narcissist to make them feel out of control by accusing them, by challenging them, by putting them down, and that only hurts them. So the people that are choosing to stay with their narcissists have to take a step back and protect themselves.
Yes. And not in a way that you just described, right? Not using the same tools that they use, which is putting people down, gaslighting. It's not through that. It is really and truly through the self-confidence, being fair in a relationship and setting boundaries, which is not accepting certain behaviors, not accepting some things, and doing that over and over and over again, that they will be able to survive really psychologically a relationship with a narcissist. Sometimes people do that out of being with their children and maintaining a family, or it's, several different reasons.
Right, but sometimes it may be healthier not to stay together for the sake of the children, but I think we're all raised and trained to stay together for the children because the children want to be raised in an intact family. But of course, the psychological damage could be great.
And it's not really what I was saying when I said stay for the sake of the children. Some parents think that when they are with or married to someone and they can protect the children from their parent who are a narcissist.
I see.
So that's why. And then they might separate or divorce later on when children have the capacity to establish their own boundaries.
Well, I think we're both right. We're both kind of talking
Yes,
about
yes.
different variations.
Yes. I was just clarifying because,
Okay.
by your comment, I noticed that, I was not very clear about what is saying.
Okay.
Yes.
One of the things I also thought about was narcissism versus ADHD. Frequently, they present in similar ways, meaning someone with ADHD that has poor impulse control may not be able to regulate themselves, may interrupt other people in conversation, may get caught in a loop of behaviors that they're doing and lose track of the outside world. And frequently, their spouses accuse them of being narcissistic. So, my advice to people who are wondering if their spouses are narcissistic is do your research before you use the label loosely. And because it is so trendy now, you can describe things and your friends will say, oh, he's a narcissist or she's a narcissist. And that's that. And, I always say do your research, get professional help, and really evaluate whether your spouse is a narcissist. I'm thinking now of a couple that I work with, and the husband is convinced that his wife is a narcissist, and I don't agree. And I tell him that all the time. She happens to have ADHD, and that's part of it, but not all of it. But he needs to peg her as a narcissist to tolerate aspects of her that are challenging for him And that's his struggle too. It's not all her fault.
But it's interesting, right? So that happens a lot with couples
Yeah.
that they come and they try to convince the therapist that my partner is the one that has a problem. My partner is a narcissist. And let me tell you why.
Yeah.
And they spend the whole session trying to convince us. And in that way, they don't see how they contribute to the problems in the relationship.
Mhm.
And that is very problematic. And that's what we call the resistance in couples therapy, where they don't see how they contributed to the problems. It makes it harder for us and for them too. But it's interesting. A lot of mental health issues can come across as being, and I'm reframing here, as self-centered, not narcissistic, because narcissistic has to do with I'm better than you, I'm, great. With people who have ADD or ADHD, usually they feel very bad because they know they grew up with issues of not being able to control their impulses or ADD issues, and they had a lot of criticism. So they grew up not feeling great about themselves, which is not narcissistic at all. But they act in a way for the person who is looking from the outside in a very self-centered way because they have difficulty with executive function.
Which is not narcissistic at all.
I was just to complete, there are some other issues like depression, like anxiety, that are also very consuming for the person who has it. And the person becomes self centered, and sometimes the whole family turns into helping this person who is having a problem with OCD or, another mental health issue.
And I wanted to highlight the term self-centered because I think the reason why the term narcissism is overused is that people think of it as self-centered, that if my spouse is self-centered, then he or she is a narcissist, period. And the grandiosity is what makes narcissism. It's more than just being self-centered.
Yes.
And that was so important.
Again, an eggs doesn't make the whole cake, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
In order to have the whole cake, you have to have other ingredients. And also, you don't have to have all the ingredients that DSM says, but enough to grant that person, something is wrong. That person
Mhm.
is always trying to be the best and put people down, have no empathy, and this and that. You go like, yeah.
I was thinking about the conversations I've had with spouses who say they're married to a narcissist or their partner's a narcissist. And I realized that the majority of these labels are coming from women. And the implications are that women are more astute or men are more narcissistic. And I did a tiny bit of research. And what I came across with was of the general population, 4.8% of females have narcissism. 7.7% of males have narcissism. That's almost twice as much as females. Then it got me thinking about toxic masculinity, how men are raised, what the expectations of them are, what they are able and allowed to get away with, how they've been acculturated, how they've been taught to deal with anger. And so it's a much bigger issue for men, and it's beyond just men. It's also about how our society treats masculinity in general.
Yes, and raise men to be the leaders, to be the head of the family, all the stuff that we expect men to be, and using the anger and all the stuff that we allow them to be. It is a ground for to develop more narcissistic, less convenient traits in a
Yes.
personality. And it doesn't surprise me. And I actually expected that men would have more narcissistic tendencies than women.
Who's more narcissistic, you or me?
Oh, I'm vain. I'm vain. I'm not narcissistic, but I'm vain. I'm
Well,
very vain.
well, I'd say we're about equal for our genders in that respect, wouldn't you?
I think that I suffered for a long time of low self-esteem and low self-confidence.
No.
And some of my relationships did not help me with that, but helped me to realize that and grow with it. So I think that nowadays, through my own work with myself, I do have a better narcissism, more self confidence. So I like to think that, but I'm vain. I like looking good and pretty and all that.
Good. Any ideas about what partners should do or not do?
Oh, well, so every time that you point the finger to your partner, think about they say when you're pointing one finger, three others are pointing to yourself. So look at yourself. And why
Ooh.
that trait, why that behavior is bothering you, and how you're reacting to that in a way that is not good for the relationship. So that is one thing.
Mhm.
So if you're talking about a term of a narcissistic problem in the relationship, if someone is being too narcissistic, the other person is probably having a lack of self-confidence or not having a voice. I invite people to take a look at that. And when we are talking about narcissism, of course, protect yourself if the person is trying to exploit or not being fair to you or being, nasty, of course. But sometimes we can go along, we can get a lot done when we are compassionate and understanding where that person coming from and the pains that they have. But how about you?
I have a client who, after many years of working with me, got really angry and felt betrayed that I never told him that his partner was a narcissist. And I choose not to focus on labels because sometimes labels can be pathologizing. And I also didn't feel as though it was up to me to identify that or even diagnose that because I was only hearing about this man through my client. So, meaning my client's in a gay relationship. To weave it into my advice as we end today's episode, my advice is you can pathologize by using the term, or you can be productive by doing your research, understanding what it means, looking beyond just the term to understand why your partner is the way they are and use the compassion that you were referring to before, Lillian. Establish boundaries to protect yourself, whether it be physically, emotionally, financially. If you work too hard to beat the narcissism out of your spouse, it's not going to work.
Mhm.
It doesn't work that way. They're not going to see their narcissism. So you have to accept what the truth is at face value. And then you decide, how do I maintain the household with the kids? Or do I need to leave because it's too toxic and it's too dangerous for me? It's really hard to do. That's why I'm saying get professional help and be discerning when other people who are protective over you tell you that your spouse is a narcissist. Because what I've learned about groups is that we can always get people to be on our side,
Mhm.
especially the people that we love. Our family and our friends are always going to be loyal to us. And if we taint the description of our spouses, chances are they're going to support that and possibly take it beyond what it really is. And that is it for today. So thanks as always for joining us for The Modern Couples, What Your Therapist Never Told You. And I will see you next time, and everyone else too. Take good care.
See you next time.
Bye bye.
Bye.